So let's see how this private versus public properties thing works in practice. Here we have an address book entry object, and you can see that I've actually used standard variable declaration to create a person role inside address book entry. Now we know that variables that we declare inside a function are scoped to that function, unlike these, which have been created as properties of the function that are visible outside. So if I wanted to start to get some of the data out of this object and echo it to the screen, I could do this, for example. I'm going to log message u.fname, which should be available, and it is, because I've created a student variable called u with the first name excellent, which we know is true. So excellent student.fname is excellent as we expect. Now if I put in u.personRole, that's undefined, and we expect it to be undefined because that variable is not visible outside the scope of the function. On the other hand, if I want to get the value of person role, I am able to access this getPersonRole method, which basically does nothing but return the person role. So if I run that, sure enough, I get student. There's no surprises here so far. But let's have a little fun. Let's see what would happen if we were to try and set person role directly. Now this thing's not accessible outside the function, so if I try to set it, what do you think is going to happen? Well, it didn't throw an error. Let's look at the console just to be sure. And there's no errors in the console. So it looks like, you would have expected it to say there's no property called person role, it's undefined or something like that. Let's try to get this value back out. And sure enough, it actually gets the value Jester out of the person role property on this object. Well, what's actually happening here is exposed by making a call to getPersonRole. Now we called getPersonRole here and we got student. And if I call getPersonRole again, on this line, I still get student. Here's what's happened. By assigning u.personRole a value, what I've done is I've created another public property on this object. I haven't overwritten this person role, which is inaccessible. I've created one as if I had typed this.personRole. I've assigned a public property to this object, and I can set it, and I can get a value out of it, but it's not to be mistaken for this one. So it really is, this is something that can catch you up, particularly when you're working with JavaScript libraries and code. There'll be some property that you think you're overwriting by doing this sort of syntax, but in truth, a private property is a private property, and you can have a private property and a public property named the same thing. So that's just a little bit of the complexity of how this works, but on the other hand, it's sort of simple. It's that the public properties of an object are just that. They're the public properties of an object. Variables that are scoped within an object are just that. They're variables scoped within an object. And you can have both, and they can be called the same thing, but they're not the same thing. In most cases, this code down here where I'm setting a property with the same name as, a private variable that's scoped within that function, this would be something that's considered a mistake. Yes, it doesn't fail. But it's not something you would normally do on purpose. That's sort of a programming error that can catch you up from time to time. So that's how that works.